Hello and welcome to everything you need to know in order to start learning Japanese. Now, depending on where you're looking, some sources might say you need to start learning vocabulary or grammar, but in my opinion, I think it's very important that the first thing you do is learn very deeply and in depth about the different writing systems in Japanese. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's get started. So we're going to be looking here at lesson 0, the very first chapter in my textbook here, if you'd like to follow along yourself. And we're going to be looking at the alphabets of Japanese. But that being said, there actually are no alphabets in Japanese because the word alphabet has its own special meaning that does not apply to any of the writing systems in Japanese. In Japanese, there are 3 different writing systems. There's hiragana, katakana, and kanji. And hiragana and katakana are both technically syllabaries, which means that all of the characters represent a syllable. So if we look here, this is a, I, u, e, and o in hiragana, and all of these characters represent a syllable, similarly to how we could have something like ka, or ki, or ku. Every character will represent a syllable in itself. That is different from English. If we look at the letter A, for example, in English, A makes many different sounds. It can be a, it can be ah, it can be a. Lots of different sounds depending on the word that it's used in, and that's going to be different from Japanese. These characters, for the most part, will always be pronounced the way that you would expect them to, the way that they look. Just that simple, a, I, u, e, o in this case, for these ones. The last one is kanji here, a logographic. And a logographic is a fancy word that you don't need to know, but it means that every character represents a meaning instead of a sound. And we'll look at that more when we're looking at kanji. But for today, we're mainly just looking at hiragana, the first one that you need to be thinking about. So to go in depth into hiragana here, again, they are characters used to depict sounds, and there are only 5 main vowel sounds in hiragana, but also in all of Japanese. Those sounds again are a, I, u, e, and o. So those are kind of good to practice. You might want to try those out yourself as you're watching this video and say it out loud. A, I, u, e, o. If you can say those 5 vowel sounds, then you are well on your way to pronouncing just about any word in Japanese. It ends up being the case that Japanese pronunciation is actually quite easy. There's lots of ways to mess it up, but as far as the complexity of pronunciation in the languages go, Japanese is one of the easiest and simplest to pronounce languages because it is limited to just these 5 vowel sounds. Now, after we have these 5 vowel sounds, we're going to make the rest of the sounds in Japanese by adding a consonant sound to these vowel sounds. So for example, we could have kakikukeko, or mamimume mo, or babibube mo. All of those work, and we're going to be combining consonant sounds with these vowel sounds in order to get a combination of many different sounds in Japanese. Looking back to hiragana specifically, hiragana is the most basic form of writing in Japanese, and the characters end up being very round and simple. So looking at this it's about, well, it's 3 strokes. E is 2 strokes, U is 2 strokes. So they're quite easy to make. And again, very round and kind of nice looking. So this next part here says that technically any Japanese sentence could be written entirely in hiragana if you wanted to. You probably don't want to do that, but you could. The reason why you wouldn't want to do that is because Japanese doesn't have spaces. As we see in this sentence here as an example, if we write our sentence like this, then all of those hiragana characters are going to kind of get smushed together, and it's going to be hard to see the ending of one word and the beginning of the next word. Makes it difficult for me to read, makes it difficult for native Japanese people to read as well. And so what we're going to do in order to make these sentences easy to read is by switching between the different writing systems. This is the same sentence. This sentence, by the way, is Watashi wa Amerikajin desu. I am an American. And if we write that same thing now using kanji and katakana, the way that it's naturally written, it's very clear all of a sudden. This is watashi, it's written in kanji. This is wa, it's written in hiragana. America is in katakana. And by switching between these different writing systems, it's very clear separating these words apart from each other, which doesn't quite happen as well in this hiragana version. In fact, a good example of that would be in Japanese children's books. It's very common for those to be written entirely in hiragana because Japanese kids don't know kanji yet either. And so it's written all in hiragana, but of course, again, it is still difficult, even for Japanese people, to be able to read sentences entirely in hiragana. So in a Japanese children's book, you might see this sentence written with spaces, something like this maybe. Spaces are used in content in Japan that only has hiragana. So all that being said, hiragana, it does make sense to try and learn hiragana as quickly as you can. Again, as I mentioned before, you could start learning vocabulary, you could start learning grammar, but it really does make sense to learn hiragana first before you do anything else. The reason for that is as you're learning vocabulary words, you might as well be practicing them written in hiragana. You could learn that ringo means apple and learn that R-I-N-G-O, but you're really not doing yourself any favors by doing that. It's going to be a lot better if you learn that the word ringo is ri-go using hiragana characters. That way you're seeing these words and you're learning them in a way that they can be written in Japanese using the actual hiragana characters. There's many different ways of learning hiragana, and I will put lots of them down below. No method is necessarily the best. Choose the one that's best for you, and good luck out there learning hiragana. That is definitely your first step, and once you're done with that, then you can open the doors and really get into the good stuff. So good luck, and I hope to see you again soon.